Hey guys, tonight we're going on a journey to a place of awe-inspiring scale. A structure so vast it's often said you can see it from space. But tonight, we're not going to talk about the wonder of it all, or the engineering marvel. Oh no. Tonight, we're going to peel back the layers of legend and delve into the horrifying reason the Great Wall of China was a horrifying project. Boring history for sleep. You're about to discover the human cost, the sheer unimaginable suffering that built this iconic monument. You probably think of it as a majestic dragon, winding across mountains and deserts, a symbol of ancient Chinese ingenuity. But for countless souls, it was nothing short of a living nightmare. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're out there somewhere in the quiet hum of your own corner of the world, let us know where you're listening from. Perhaps you're nestled in a cozy apartment in New York City, or maybe drifting off in a peaceful cottage in rural England. Wherever you are, just relax. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand on the barren, wind-swept plains of northern China. The vast, empty expanse stretching before you. In the distance, an impossible sight begins to emerge, a colossal serpentine structure, a literal dragon's spine made of earth, stone, and brick, snaking its way over rugged mountains, plunging into deep valleys, and disappearing into the hazy horizon. This is the Great Wall, or rather, a Great Wall, for it is not, and never was, a single, continuous entity built all at once. Instead, it's a patchwork of fortifications, watchtowers, barracks, and walls built by various dynasties over more than 2 millennia. But the most horrifying, the most concentrated period of its construction, and the one we'll focus on tonight, begins with the Qin dynasty, under the ruthless ambition of Emperor Qin Shi Huang. Imagine yourself as one of the millions of commoners living under the iron fist of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to truly unify China. He's a man of grand visions, and even grander ruthlessness. He has just brought an end to centuries of warring states, forging a vast empire. And now he looks north, to the steppe, to the nomadic tribes, the Xiongnu, who perpetually threaten his new domain. He envisions an impenetrable barrier, a colossal shield to protect his empire from these northern raiders. And you, whether you're a farmer, an artisan, or a scholar, are about to become a small, utterly insignificant cog in this monstrous, horrifying machine. The early sections of the wall under Qin Shi Huang were built in an almost unimaginable frenzy. You're not talking about carefully planned construction. You're talking about forced marches, brutal conditions, and a total disregard for human life. The emperor's decree is absolute, and his overseers are merciless. You might be conscripted from your farm hundreds of miles away, torn from your family, and forced to march north, often without adequate food or shelter, to a desolate frontier where the ground is hard, the winds are biting, and the only certainty is relentless labor. This isn't voluntary service. This is forced servitude on an epic scale, a true testament to despotic power. Consider the sheer scale of the operation. You're not just moving a few rocks, you're moving mountains. Imagine building a wall thousands of miles long, through some of the most inhospitable terrain on Earth. You're hauling immense stones, heavy bricks, and tons of earth by hand, often with only the most rudimentary tools. You're part of an endless chain of humanity, passing buckets of rubble, chiseling at stubborn rock faces, or pounding earth into layers for rammed earth sections. Your muscles ache constantly, your hands are raw and bleeding, and your back feels like it's about to snap. There are no machines, no sophisticated engineering equipment, just sheer, brutal human effort. And the conditions. Oh, the conditions. You are working in a land of extremes. In summer, the sun beats down relentlessly, baking the earth and dehydrating your body. You might suffer from heat stroke, your vision blurring, your head throbbing. In winter, the northern winds howl like hungry wolves, biting to the bone, bringing blizzards that bury everything in snow. You shiver constantly, your meager clothing offering little protection. Frostbite is common, leading to amputations or agonizing death. You might see your fellow laborers collapse from exhaustion, from cold, from disease, and their bodies are simply left where they fall, or buried hastily in the wall itself. This practice, while perhaps less common than popular legend suggests, contributes to the chilling idea of the Great Wall being built on bones. Historians still debate the extent to which human remains were literally incorporated into the wall structure, though the sheer number of deaths during construction is undeniable. The logistical nightmare of supplying this colossal project is itself horrifying. Imagine feeding, clothing, and housing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of laborers in remote, desolate regions. Food supplies are meager and often spoiled. Water is scarce. Disease spreads like wildfire through crowded, unsanitary work camps. You might see dysentery, typhus, and various fevers sweep through the ranks, claiming lives faster than any battle. Medical care is virtually non-existent. You are utterly alone, far from home, with little hope of survival if illness or injury strikes. This isn't just construction. It's a slow, agonizing grind towards oblivion for many. A particularly chilling aspect, a little-known detail to many, is the role of exiled criminals and political prisoners. Alongside conscripted peasants, vast numbers of convicts were sent to work on the wall as a form of brutal punishment. These individuals, already stripped of their rights and dignity, faced even harsher treatment, often worked to death under the cruelest conditions. You might be forced to witness public floggings or executions for minor infractions, designed to terrorize the workforce into submission. The fear is palpable, a constant companion that drives you to keep digging, keep lifting. Even when your body screams for rest, it's a vast outdoor prison, where the sentence is hard labor unto death. This immense human sacrifice, the sheer scale of the suffering, is what truly makes the Great Wall a horrifying project. It was not a testament to human cooperation, but to human exploitation on a scale rarely seen in history. Every brick, every stone, every packed layer of earth represents not just ingenuity, but the crushed hopes, broken bodies, and lost lives of countless individuals. You might hear the wind whistling through the mountains and imagine it carrying the mournful cries of those who perished, their silent screams etched into the very stones of the wall. You're still there, caught in the vast, desolate landscape where the Great Wall winds like a scar across the earth. The echoes of forced labor and unspeakable conditions from the last chapter resonate. But now, let's zoom in on the grim reality of the materials themselves, the very substance of this colossal monument: blood, bone, and bricks. You feel the immense, deadly human cost. Imagine yourself on a construction site of the wall, perhaps during the Ming Dynasty, centuries after Qin Shi Huang's initial frenzy, but with no less brutality. You are tasked with bringing materials to the wall. This isn't just about sourcing local stone, it's about the sheer volume, the almost impossible distances, and the primitive methods of transport. You're hauling immense stones from distant quarries, often miles away, over treacherous terrain. There are no trucks, no cranes, no powered machinery. Every single piece of rock, every single brick, every bucket of mortar is moved by human muscle, or by the strained backs of animals. Think about the process. You might be part of a team dragging massive stone blocks using thick ropes, your shoulders raw, your feet slipping on loose scree. Or perhaps you're a porter, carrying heavy baskets of earth or lime on your back, climbing steep mountain slopes, one agonizing step after another. The paths are crude, often treacherous, carved out by sheer necessity. A single misstep, a moment of fatigue, and you could plunge into a ravine, your screams swallowed by the wind. And if you fall, the consequences are often fatal, not just for you, but for those behind you in the human chain. This constant, grinding physical effort, under the watchful eyes of merciless overseers, is a daily reality. The bricks themselves represent a horrifying story. You're not just finding them, you're making them, often in rudimentary kilns set up near the construction sites. Imagine the process: you're mixing clay, lime, sand, and sometimes even glutinous rice flour for extra strength, forming them into precise shapes, then firing them at immense temperatures. The work is dirty, dusty, and incredibly hot. Even in the cold seasons, the air is thick with smoke and particulate matter, slowly but surely damaging your lungs. A little-known detail is that some sections of the Ming Wall used bricks so perfectly fired that they remain incredibly durable even today. But this perfection came at an immense cost in labor and fuel. The sheer weight of these materials is difficult to comprehend. A single brick could weigh several kilograms, and you're moving thousands of them. Stone blocks could weigh hundreds of kilograms, requiring dozens of men to drag them up slopes that would challenge modern vehicles. You feel the strain in every fiber of your being, every muscle screaming in protest. This constant physical exertion, combined with malnutrition and exposure to the elements, quickly takes its toll. You might see men coughing up blood, their bodies wasting away, their spirits broken long before their physical demise. And what happens when you die? The chilling legend, whispered among the laborers, is that your body might be incorporated into the wall itself. While direct archaeological evidence for widespread human remains within the wall structure is limited, and historians still debate the literal truth of the Wall of Bones legend, the symbolism holds immense power. The very ground you walk on, the earth you dig, the bricks you lay, are saturated with the suffering and death of countless individuals. It's a psychological burden, an invisible weight added to every physical load you carry. The phrase, "a body for every brick," might be an exaggeration, but the spirit of that phrase, the acknowledgement of an astronomical death toll, is chillingly accurate. The lack of proper safety measures is another horrifying aspect. You're working on precipitous cliffs, in deep gorges, without harnesses, without hard hats, without any modern safety equipment whatsoever. Landslides are common, rockfalls are frequent, and falls from heights are a daily occurrence. One slip, one moment of carelessness, or just sheer bad luck, and your life is over. You witness horrific accidents, bodies crushed by falling stones, men impaled on sharpened stakes, all in the name of building this impenetrable barrier. The overseers often care more about the progress of the wall than the lives of the workers, pushing them beyond their limits. Beyond direct accidents, disease is a constant companion. Remember the unsanitary conditions we talked about: contaminated water, poor hygiene, and close quarters in the labor camps make them breeding grounds for epidemics. You might see a fever sweep through your camp, claiming dozens of lives in a matter of days. Dysentery weakens you, making you even more susceptible to exhaustion and injury. There is no escape, no hospital, no medication beyond a few traditional remedies that are often ineffective. You are simply left to suffer and, often, to die. Even after death, the indignity continues. There are no proper burials, no ceremonies. Your body might be tossed into a shallow grave or left exposed to the elements. Your family, hundreds or thousands of miles away, will never know your fate. You simply vanish. Another anonymous casualty of the wall. This absolute dehumanization, this treatment of human lives as mere expendable resources, is perhaps the most horrifying aspect of the entire project. It's not just about the physical pain, it's about the utter disregard for human value. So, as you imagine the sheer magnitude of the Great Wall, remember that it's not just stone and earth. It's a monument forged from immense human suffering, from backbreaking labor, from countless lost lives. Every meter of its colossal length whispers tales of exhaustion, disease, and despair. It is a testament to imperial ambition. Yes, but also a stark reminder of the terrifying price paid by those who built it. You feel the weight of those sacrifices, etched into the very bricks and stones beneath your imaginary hands. It is, truly, a structure built on blood and bone. You're still there, lingering in the quiet, reflective space that hums with the echoes of the Great Wall's construction. We've considered the immense human cost in terms of forced labor and the physical toll of building with blood and bone. Now, let's widen our gaze and consider the environment itself, the utterly brutal, unforgiving landscapes through which this colossal monument was forced to traverse forbidden deserts. Icy peaks. You traverse a landscape of brutal extremes. Imagine yourself, a conscripted laborer, having just survived the arduous march to the frontier. You're now faced with the stark, terrifying reality of the terrain where your work will begin. This isn't fertile farmland or gentle rolling hills. This is the very edge of civilization, a place where nature itself seems actively hostile to human endeavor. The Great Wall wasn't built across a single, uniform landscape. It winds through an astonishing variety of geographical nightmares, each presenting its own set of horrifying challenges. First, consider the mountains. You are often ordered to construct the wall over incredibly steep, jagged peaks and plunging ravines. Imagine the dizzying heights, the sheer drops on either side, as you clamber with heavy loads of stone. The paths you traverse are often nothing more than goat trails, treacherous and slippery. Accidents are commonplace: a single misstep, a loose rock, a momentary lapse of concentration, and you could fall hundreds of feet to your death. The air is thin, making every breath a struggle, every lift of a heavy stone an agonizing test of endurance. You see colleagues lose their footing, their bodies tumbling into the abyss, becoming just another anonymous casualty swallowed by the vast, indifferent landscape. Then there are the deserts. Vast, desolate stretches of sand and rock, like the Gobi Desert or the Ordos Plateau. In summer, the heat is absolutely relentless. You feel the sun beat down on your head, scorching your skin, draining the moisture from your body. Water is incredibly scarce. Imagine marching for days, your tongue swollen, your lips cracked, desperate for a sip, knowing that if the water carriers don't arrive, or if their meager supply runs out, you will simply perish from thirst. Many did. The sand itself is a torment, blowing constantly, getting into your eyes, your lungs, turning the air into a gritty haze. A little-known detail is that some sections of the wall in desert areas were not solid stone, but rather layers of rammed earth, making them less durable but easier to construct with locally available materials, though no less brutal for the laborers. But the deserts hold another horror: the extreme cold of winter. You might think of deserts as hot, but in these northern regions, winter temperatures plummet to bone-chilling lows, far below freezing. The wind howls incessantly, a freezing gale that penetrates through even the thickest clothing. Your hands and feet ache with frostbite, your breath condenses into icy clouds, and the ground becomes hard as iron, making excavation an almost impossible task. You see men succumb to hypothermia, simply freezing to death where they stand or sleep, their bodies found stiff and lifeless in the morning, trying to work with heavy, frozen materials with numb fingers is a constant battle against the elements, and often, the elements win. The remoteness of these locations is another significant factor in the horror. You are far, far from any established civilization, any towns or villages. This makes the logistical challenges of supplying the construction sites truly monumental. Remember those meager food rations from the previous section? They often had to be transported hundreds, even thousands, of miles over these very same treacherous terrains. You are at the mercy of supply lines that can be disrupted by weather, by bandits, or by simple imperial incompetence. famine is a constant threat, and you live with the gnawing fear of starvation. Beyond the physical challenges, the sheer desolation of the landscape takes a heavy psychological toll. You are isolated, surrounded by endless, empty vistas, with no sign of home or comfort. The vastness of the task seems to mirror the vastness of the emptiness around you. It's a landscape that breeds despair, making you feel utterly insignificant and alone in the face of such a colossal, unforgiving undertaking. This isn't just about hard labor, it's about being broken by the sheer indifference of the environment. Historians still debate the total length and precise route of the various sections of the Great Wall constructed over different dynasties. The sheer geographic diversity of its path, from lush river valleys to barren plateaus, from jagged mountains to sandy deserts, means that the construction methods and the daily horrors faced by the laborers varied wildly. But the constant across all these landscapes was the extreme environmental challenge and the incredible human suffering involved in overcoming it. Some argue that the wall's location was strategically perfect, but environmentally disastrous for its builders. Others emphasize that such immense projects always came with immense human cost, regardless of location. Even the materials themselves, whether it's granite from the mountains or compacted earth from the plains, were subject to the brutal forces of nature. You might be building a section of wall only to see it partially washed away by a flash flood or crumbled by an earthquake. Then, you're forced to rebuild, adding to the endless, cyclical torment of your labor. The wall isn't just a static structure, it's a constant battle against the elements, a battle that countless laborers lost with their lives. So, as you envision the majestic sweep of the Great Wall, remember the terrifying reality of its construction through forbidden deserts and icy peaks. It was a project that demanded not just human strength, but human endurance against the very harshest forces of nature. You feel the grit of the desert sand in your mouth, the biting wind on your exposed skin, the exhaustion of climbing endless mountain slopes, all for a structure that stretched beyond the horizon, demanding every ounce of your life force. It is, truly, a monument built not just on the landscape, but from the immense suffering inflicted by the landscape itself. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient suffering, the chilling winds of the desert and the biting cold of the peaks still a phantom presence in your mind. We've journeyed through the sheer physical horror of building the wall, the deadly terrain, and the brutal conditions. Now, let's peel back another layer and confront the very essence of the project's cruelty. Forced labor's silent screams. You witness the endless, agonizing toil. Imagine yourself a conscript, dragged from your home and thrust into this living nightmare. You are no longer an individual with a name, a family, or a life. You are merely a unit of labor, a tool in the Emperor's grand design. Your day begins before dawn, with a harsh shout from an overseer, rousing you from a fitful sleep on the cold, hard ground. There's no time for proper meals, no moment for rest, from sunup to sundown, and often long into the night under the flickering light of torches. Your body is pushed to its absolute breaking point. The work is relentless. You're part of a continuous, grueling chain. If you're not digging trenches, you're hauling stones. If you're not hauling stones, you're pounding earth. If you're not pounding earth, you're mixing mortar. There's no respite, no break in the agonizing rhythm. Your muscles ache with a perpetual soreness. Your joints protest with every movement, and your mind struggles to maintain focus amidst the ceaseless, monotonous grind. The very act of living becomes an act of endurance, a constant battle against physical collapse. The overseers are everywhere, their whips and clubs ready to descend on anyone who falters, anyone who slows down, anyone who dares to rest. You learn quickly that even a moment of hesitation can lead to a brutal lashing. The fear of punishment is a constant, gnawing presence, driving you to continue even when your body screams for mercy. You witness the brutal floggings of your fellow laborers, their cries echoing in the desolate landscape, a chilling reminder of your own precarious existence. This isn't just about discipline, It's about terror, used as a primary motivator. A little-known detail is that some overseers were themselves conscripts who had proven particularly brutal, creating a chilling cycle of violence and exploitation. Malnutrition is a constant companion. Your rations are meager, often consisting of just enough grain to prevent immediate starvation, but never enough to sustain you through such immense physical exertion. You feel the constant gnawing of hunger in your stomach, weakening your body, making you more susceptible to disease and exhaustion. Imagine trying to lift heavy stones on an empty stomach, day after day, week after week. Your vision might blur, your head might swim, but you dare not stop. This systematic underfeeding is another silent killer, slowly draining your strength, making you vulnerable to every ailment that sweeps through the camps. And disease, as we've briefly touched upon, is rampant. The overcrowded, unsanitary living conditions in the labor camps are ideal breeding grounds for pathogens. You might see dysentery sweep through the ranks, debilitating hundreds, or typhus claiming lives with terrifying speed. There's no proper sanitation, no clean water, and absolutely no medical care beyond the most rudimentary first aid, if any at all. You're forced to work alongside the sick, breathing the same air, sharing the same meager resources, knowing that your turn might come at any moment. Historians still debate the total number of deaths directly attributable to the construction of the Great Wall under various dynasties, with some estimates ranging into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. Over its entire history, the lack of precise records makes an exact figure elusive, but the consensus is that the death toll was staggering. The separation from your family is another deep horror. You are torn from your wife, your children, your parents, often never to see them again. Communication is impossible. You live with the agonizing uncertainty of their fate, even as they live with the gnawing fear for yours. This emotional torment adds another layer to your suffering, a constant ache in your heart that no amount of physical pain can alleviate. You might see other laborers break down, weeping silently for their lost loved ones. Their despair, a mirror of your own. Death, when it finally comes, often brings no dignity. As we mentioned, the legend of bodies being buried in the wall, while perhaps not always literal, reflects the reality that countless laborers perished and were hastily interred near the construction sites, their graves unmarked, their names forgotten. You witness the casual disposal of bodies, thrown into ditches or covered by earth, just another piece of the landscape in the eyes of the ruthless imperial machine. This dehumanization, this treatment of human lives as disposable resources, is perhaps the most profound horror of the entire project. Consider the psychological toll of this endless, agonizing toil. You are not building for yourself, or for your family, or even for your community. You are building for a distant emperor, a faceless authority that cares nothing for your suffering. Your efforts are subsumed into a vast, impersonal project that seems to have no end. This sense of powerlessness, of being utterly expendable, can crush the human spirit more effectively than any physical torment. You might find yourself losing hope, succumbing to a profound sense of resignation. So, as you imagine the colossal edifice of the Great Wall, look beyond the impressive scale and consider the silent screams embedded within its very fabric. It is a monument built not just of stone and earth, but of relentless forced labor, of crushed bodies, and of utterly broken spirits. Every brick, every section of rammed earth, every watchtower represents the agonizing toil and countless unrecorded deaths of those who were compelled to build it. You feel the ghost of that brutal effort, the immense, horrifying human cost, whispering from its ancient stones, a chilling testament to imperial ambition paid for with human lives. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient suffering, the phantom echoes of forced labor and the brutal landscape still lingering. We've explored the immense human cost in raw physical terms. Now, let's shift our perspective to the wall's very purpose, and uncover a horrifying truth about its strategic effectiveness. A wall's cruel illusion. You realize its true terrifying military failures. Imagine you are one of the countless laborers, sweating, bleeding, and dying to build this immense barrier. You are told, endlessly, that this wall is for your protection, that it will keep the terrifying Xiongnu nomads and other northern barbarians out, that it will bring peace and security to the empire. This promise, this grand illusion of impenetrable defense, is what theoretically justifies your unimaginable suffering. But the horrifying reality, etched in the annals of history, is that the Great Wall, in many crucial instances, failed spectacularly in its primary military objective. You see, a wall, no matter how immense, is only as strong as the army defending it. And the Chinese emperors, particularly during the Ming dynasty, when much of the wall we see today was constructed and renovated, faced a perpetual dilemma. They poured vast resources, countless lives, into building this fixed defense. But what good is a wall if the soldiers guarding it are undermanned, underpaid, or strategically outmaneuvered? You could have the most magnificent barrier in the world, but if the watchtowers are empty, or the garrisons are too weak to repel a determined assault, the wall becomes nothing more than an expensive, horrifying monument to misplaced priorities. Consider the tactics of the nomadic invaders. They weren't always interested in a frontal assault. They were masters of mobility, of swift raids, of exploiting weaknesses. You might see them bypass sections of the wall entirely, finding less well-guarded areas, or simply riding around the ends of incomplete or poorly maintained sections. A little-known detail is that the Great Wall, for much of its history, was not a single, continuous line. It was a series of walls, gaps, and natural barriers. This means there were numerous ways for determined invaders to circumvent the impenetrable defense. It's like building an enormous, expensive fortress, but leaving the back door wide open. Even when confronted directly by a strong section of the wall, the nomads developed clever tactics. They might use ladders, or even build ramps of earth and timber to get over. They could feign attacks in one area to draw defenders away, then strike elsewhere. Or, most terrifyingly, they could simply bribe the guards. You might see a desperate, underpaid Roman soldier, or in this case, a Ming dynasty guard, accepting a bag of silver or silk in exchange for opening a gate or looking the other way. This internal corruption was a far more pervasive threat than any battering ram. Historians still debate the extent to which corruption and poor garrisoning, rather than the wall's physical shortcomings, contributed to its breaches. Some argue that a well-manned and disciplined wall was indeed highly effective, while others point to countless instances where human failings rendered its colossal structure moot. One of the most horrifying examples of the wall's failure, a pivotal moment that would echo for centuries, occurred in 1644. You're living through the final, chaotic days of the Ming dynasty. The empire is crumbling from within, plagued by corruption, rebellion, and economic hardship sound familiar. Like Rome, a massive peasant rebellion, led by Li Zicheng, is sweeping towards Beijing, the capital. At the same time, the Manchu, a powerful people from beyond the wall, are pressing from the north. The Ming general, Wu Sangui, is tasked with defending the crucial Shanhai Pass, the easternmost stronghold of the Great Wall, a bottleneck where the wall meets the sea. This was considered an impregnable gateway. Imagine the tension, the fear. You are a soldier stationed at Shanhai Pass, knowing that the fate of the Ming dynasty, perhaps even all of China, rests on your ability to hold this vital point. But Wu Sangui, caught between the peasant rebels and the Manchu, makes a horrifying choice. He opens the gates of the Great Wall to the Manchu army. Yes, you heard that right. The very wall built to keep invaders out was opened from within, not breached by force, but by political calculation and desperation. The Manchu swept through, crushed the peasant rebellion, and then proceeded to conquer all of China, establishing the Qing dynasty. This was the ultimate, cruel illusion. All that blood, bone, and bricks, all that suffering, that endless toil, that monumental expense, only for the impenetrable barrier to be rendered useless by a strategic decision, a political maneuver. You realize, with a chilling sense of dread, that the wall wasn't just a physical barrier, it was a psychological one, creating a false sense of security that ultimately proved disastrous. It fostered a mindset of passive defense, diverting resources and attention away from more dynamic military strategies. It's like spending a fortune on an unbreachable safe, only to hand the combination to the thief. The Great Wall's military effectiveness was further undermined by its immense maintenance needs. You are building this colossal structure, but it also requires constant upkeep. Watchtowers crumble, sections erode, and manpower is needed to garrison it. When central governments weakened, or when finances became strained, a theme we'll explore more deeply later, the wall would inevitably fall into disrepair, creating new vulnerabilities. It becomes a testament not to enduring strength, but to fleeting ambition and colossal waste. So, as you drift further into sleep, let the terrifying truth of the Great Wall's military failures settle over you. It was a project built on the promise of security, yet it often proved to be a cruel illusion. Its immense scale masked fundamental strategic flaws, vulnerabilities to human failings, and an inability to adapt to the fluid nature of warfare. You feel the ghostly whispers of those who perished building it, their suffering tragically rendered ineffective by the very limitations inherent in such a monumental, static defense. It is a horrifying reminder that even the most impressive feats of human engineering can be undone. Not by force, but by the subtle, insidious failures of strategy and human nature. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient ambition and its horrifying ironies, the echoes of the Great Wall's military failures lingering in the background. We've seen the physical toll on its builders and the strategic vulnerabilities of the colossal structure itself. Now, let's shift our gaze from the immediate human cost to the broader imperial ledger, and uncover how this monumental project, ironically, became a drain that crippled the very empire it was meant to protect. Economic drain. Imperial strain. You feel the crushing weight of its financial burden. Imagine you are a tax-paying citizen of ancient China, perhaps a diligent farmer in a fertile plain, or a hard-working artisan in a bustling city. For generations, you have known the demands of the imperial court taxes on your land, your harvest, your labor. But now, you notice a palpable increase in these demands, a tightening of the imperial purse strings that directly impacts your daily life. This isn't just routine taxation. This is the relentless siphoning of wealth to feed an insatiable, monstrous project, the Great Wall. The sheer financial outlay for constructing and maintaining the Great Wall was astronomical, almost incomprehensible in ancient terms. Think about the raw materials alone: millions of tons of stone, earth, timber, and brick. These weren't simply found. They had to be quarried, processed, and transported, often across vast and difficult terrains. You might be forced to provide timber from your local forests or stone from a nearby quarry without compensation. This constitutes a direct seizure of resources, impacting your own ability to build or maintain your livelihood. Then there's the cost of labor. While much of the labor was forced, remember the silent screams of conscripts and convicts. These laborers still needed to be fed, clothed, and at least minimally housed. Imagine the logistics of feeding hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions, of people in remote, desolate regions. Food had to be collected from provinces, often far away, and transported over long, treacherous distances. This put immense strain on the imperial granaries and transport networks, diverting resources that could have been used for famine relief, flood control, or other public works. You might experience food shortages in your own village, even in good harvest years, because your grain is being diverted to the wall. The cost of administering such a project was also immense. You need overseers, engineers, military garrisons to guard the laborers and fend off potential attacks. These officials and soldiers need to be paid, equipped, and supplied. This creates a vast, sprawling bureaucracy dedicated solely to the wall, consuming further imperial revenue. Historians still debate the precise total expenditure on the Great Wall across its various dynasties, as comprehensive financial records are rare, but it's universally acknowledged to be one of the most expensive infrastructure projects in ancient history, consuming a significant portion of state revenues for centuries. Some scholars estimate that at times, up to a third of the national budget was allocated to the wall and its associated military garrisons. The long-term economic drain didn't stop with construction. The wall required constant maintenance and garrisoning. You might be conscripted not to build, but to serve as a guard on a remote section of the wall, far from your home and family, for years at a time. This takes able-bodied men away from agriculture and other productive activities, further impacting the economy. Imagine entire villages losing their most productive workers to the wall, year after year. The fields lie fallow, families struggle, and local economies stagnate. It's like a colossal leech, slowly sucking the lifeblood out of the empire. This relentless financial burden had devastating ripple effects throughout the Chinese Empire. With so much money funneled into the wall, other crucial sectors were starved of funds. Public works like irrigation systems, roads, and canals, which were vital for agricultural productivity and trade, might fall into disrepair. Education and cultural endeavors might receive less funding. You might see your local bridge crumbling, or your irrigation ditch silting up, knowing that the resources to fix them are being poured into that distant, endless wall. The heavy taxation required to fund the wall also led to widespread discontent and, ultimately, peasant rebellions. Imagine you are a farmer, barely making ends meet, and the imperial tax collector demands even more of your meager harvest or your precious bronze coins. The burden becomes unbearable, driving you to desperation. Many historical accounts describe how the overwhelming demands of wall construction and its associated taxes fueled widespread unrest, leading to major uprisings that destabilized dynasties. A little-known detail is that the collapse of the Qin dynasty, which initiated the massive unified wall project, was hastened by the very resentment generated by its brutal construction policies. You feel the simmering anger, the quiet defiance, that builds up when a government asks too much for too little perceived benefit. Furthermore, the wall, intended as a defensive barrier, arguably stifled cross-border trade with nomadic tribes. While it reduced raids, it also limited the potential for peaceful exchange of goods and ideas. Imagine the economic benefits lost from regular, organized trade with the steppe peoples. This wasn't just about military defense. It was about defining a rigid border that limited economic interaction, potentially leading to further conflict rather than mutual benefit. Historians still debate the overall economic efficacy of the Great Wall. Did its defensive benefits outweigh its immense financial and social costs? Some argue that it provided a stable frontier for centuries, allowing the core Chinese economy to develop, while others contend that it was a colossal white elephant that bled the empire dry. So, as you drift further into sleep, consider the horrifying financial reality of the Great Wall. It was a project that, while seemingly providing security, simultaneously became an immense drain on China's imperial coffers, diverting vital resources, stifling economic growth, and fueling widespread social unrest. You feel the phantom weight of those heavy taxes, the hunger caused by diverted grain, and the despair of a nation stretched to its breaking point by the relentless demands of a truly colossal, and ultimately crippling, architectural ambition. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That a symbol of strength could also be a monument to economic overstretch? You're still there. Suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient empires and their monumental follies, the echoes of economic strain and crushing taxes still lingering, we've explored the horrifying human cost, the brutal terrain, the strategic failures, and the crippling financial burden of the Great Wall. Now, let's peer behind the curtain of imperial ambition and try to understand the mind that conceived such an undertaking. The Emperor's mad vision? You glimpse the mind behind this colossal obsession. Imagine yourself a court official, a scholar, or even a close advisor, living in the court of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. He is a man of contradictions, brilliant and visionary, yet utterly ruthless and paranoid. He has just unified China, conquering all rival states with brutal efficiency, forging an empire larger and more powerful than any before it. He sees himself as a singular, epic-making figure, destined to lay the foundation for a dynasty that would last 10,000 generations. And his vision for the Great Wall is not merely a military one, it is an extension of his own colossal ego, a physical manifestation of his desire for absolute control and immortality. You witness his pronouncements, his unwavering belief that this wall is the ultimate solution to the northern threat. But beneath the surface of strategic necessity lies a deep-seated fear and an almost pathological need for order. Having just united a land plagued by centuries of warfare, Qin Shi Huang despises chaos and anything that threatens his newly established dominion. The nomadic tribes to the north represent precisely that chaos. Mobile, unpredictable, beyond the reach of his rigid laws and centralized power. The wall, in his mind, isn't just a barrier, it's a monumental act of demarcation. A clear, unmistakable line drawn between the civilized world he controls and the untamed wilderness beyond. This vision, while appearing strategic, quickly spirals into obsession. You see the endless decrees, the relentless demands for more labor, more resources, more speed. The cost in human lives, in economic stability, seems irrelevant to him. His goal is not just a wall, but the wall, an engineering feat so audacious that it would solidify his legacy forever. It's a kind of megalomania, a drive to leave an indelible mark on the landscape that shouts his power to the heavens and to future generations. A little-known detail is that Qin Shi Huang also famously ordered the burning of books and the burying alive of scholars who disagreed with his policies, including those who might have questioned the wisdom or cost of the wall project. This intellectual suppression ensured that his grand vision went largely unchallenged within his court. The terrifying aspect of this imperial obsession is its detachment from reality. You, as a courtier, might receive reports of thousands dying from exhaustion, from disease, from accidents. You might hear of widespread famine in distant provinces due to diverted resources. But these human costs seem to vanish into the grand narrative of the emperor's divine mission. He sees only the strategic imperative, the symbolic power, the unyielding march towards completion. Historians still debate the extent to which Qin Shi Huang's personal paranoia and desire for immortality directly influenced the scale and brutality of the Great Wall's initial construction, with some emphasizing practical defense and others highlighting his psychological drive. The truth likely lies in a complex interplay of both factors, but his absolute power certainly enabled such a ruthless undertaking. Furthermore, the emperor's vision for the wall was deeply intertwined with his belief in magic and immortality. He sought elixirs of life, sent expeditions to find mythical islands of immortals, and surrounded himself with alchemists and sorcerers. The wall, in this context, might have also served as a magical barrier, a geomantic line of defense that not only kept out physical invaders, but also warded off malevolent spirits and cosmic disharmony. You might hear whispers in the court that the wall was being built not just for the Xiongnu, but to protect the empire from unseen forces, adding a layer of superstitious dread to its already horrifying construction. This belief, while seemingly irrational, drove an even greater urgency and ruthlessness in its execution. His absolute authority meant that no one could effectively challenge his vision. Any dissent, any delay, any perceived inefficiency was met with extreme punishment. You witnessed the brutal consequences of failing to meet quotas, of questioning orders, of simply being too weak to continue. This climate of terror ensured that the wall was built at an unprecedented pace, but at an unimaginable human cost. It was a project driven by imperial decree, enforced by fear, and fueled by the boundless ambition of one man. It's like watching a train hurtle down the tracks, knowing it's headed for disaster, but being utterly powerless to stop it. The wall became a physical manifestation of Qin Shi Huang's entire philosophy of governance centralization, standardization, and ruthless efficiency. He unified weights and measures, standardized writing, and built a vast network of roads. The wall was the ultimate expression of this drive to impose order and control on a vast, unruly land. It was a symbol not just of defense, but of the emperor's ability to bend nature and humanity to his will, regardless of the cost. So, as you drift deeper into sleep, contemplate the horrifying vision of the emperor, a man so consumed by ambition and control that he saw millions of lives as mere expendable resources for his monumental project. The Great Wall is not just a triumph of engineering. It is a chilling testament to the unchecked power of a single ruler, whose personal obsessions became the horrifying reality for countless souls. You feel the weight of that singular, mad vision, etched into every stone and every layer of packed earth. A constant reminder of the tyranny that built it. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of imperial ambition, the chilling echoes of a single emperor's mad vision lingering in the quiet. We've explored the monumental scale, the brutal conditions, the strategic failures, the economic strain, and the driving force of unbridled power behind the Great Wall. Now, let's bring it down to the most heartbreaking level, the utter devastation it wrought upon the very fabric of Chinese society. The lives and families torn apart by its relentless demands. Families torn, dreams crushed. You witness lives utterly shattered by its demands. Imagine your life as a peasant farmer in ancient China, a life intricately tied to the land and your family. Your existence revolves around the rhythm of the seasons, the planting and harvesting, the care of your elders, the raising of your children. You are part of a lineage stretching back generations, your identity rooted in your village and your clan. Then, the imperial decree arrives, shattering that world in an instant. A quota must be met, and you, or your son, or your husband, is conscripted to work on the Great Wall. The departure is agonizing. You are torn from your loved ones, often without warning, forced to march hundreds, even thousands, of miles to the desolate northern frontier. You might be a young man, leaving behind a newly married wife, or a father saying goodbye to small children he may never see again. The journey itself is brutal, with inadequate food and water, diseases, and harsh treatment from military escorts. Many would perish even before reaching the construction sites. You carry with you the weight of your family's grief, the silent screams of separation. Once at the wall, communication is non-existent. There are no letters, no messages, no way to know if your family is still alive, if your children are well, or if your wife has enough to eat. You live with a constant, gnawing uncertainty, the emotional torture often surpassing the physical pain. And for the families left behind, the suffering is equally profound. A household that has lost its main laborer is plunged into immediate crisis. Who will till the fields? Who will earn the meager income? Who will protect the family from bandits or starvation? This creates immense hardship. Wives become widows in all but name, raising children alone, struggling to survive in a society where women often had limited economic independence. Children are left fatherless, or worse, orphaned, forced to fend for themselves or sold into servitude. The elderly are left without support, dying alone in their homes as their sons and grandsons labor and often perish on the distant wall. Historians still debate the specific long-term demographic and social impact of the Great Wall's construction on Chinese family structures. But there's general agreement that it caused immense disruption, depopulation in certain regions, and heightened social distress. Some scholars point to records indicating widespread abandonment of land and entire villages, simply dissolving as their able-bodied men were conscripted. The fear of conscription itself becomes a constant dread. You might try to hide your sons, or even injure them to make them unfit for service, desperate to keep your family intact. But the imperial authorities are ruthless, their quotas unyielding. There are stories, whispered in hushed tones, of families deliberately starving themselves, or even committing suicide to avoid the unbearable separation and hardship imposed by the wall's demands. This chilling desperation highlights the profound psychological impact of the project on the entire populace, not just those physically building it. The wall, therefore, wasn't just a physical barrier, it was a destroyer of homes, a wrecker of families, and a crusher of dreams. Every stone laid represented a family torn apart. Every mile of its length was built on the despair of wives and children who would never see their loved ones again. The individual aspirations, the simple dreams of a peaceful life on the land, were utterly shattered by the scale of this imperial ambition. You feel the collective weight of those unfulfilled lives, those broken bonds, hanging heavy in the cold, northern air. Beyond the immediate loss, the wall profoundly impacted social mobility and the very structure of society. With so many men conscripted for labor, the traditional peasant class, the backbone of the empire, was severely weakened. Villages were emptied, and agricultural production suffered, leading to famine and further instability. This created a vicious cycle where the wall, intended to secure the empire, instead destabilized its core social unit, the family. A little-known detail is that later dynasties, learning from the harsh lessons of the Qin, sometimes attempted to implement more humane policies, such as allowing conscripts to bring their families or providing some form of compensation. However, the sheer scale of the project across centuries meant that forced labor and immense human suffering remained a recurring theme throughout much of its construction history. Regardless of which emperor was on the throne, the suffering was ingrained in the very method of its creation. So, as you drift deeper into sleep, let the heartbreaking image of families torn apart by the Great Wall settle in your mind. It stands not only as a monument to strategic ambition, but, more tragically, as a colossal testament to the systematic destruction of countless individual lives and the dreams they held dear. You feel the ghostly tears of wives and mothers, the silent laments of children, all echoing from the colossal structure, a horrifying reminder of the deepest human cost borne by a nation in the pursuit of an impossible dream. You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient suffering, the heartbreaking echoes of torn families and crushed dreams still lingering. We've explored the visible horrors of the Great Wall, the immense labor, the brutal terrain, the strategic failures, the economic drain, and the human cost on families. Now, let's peel back another, more chilling layer and uncover a less obvious, yet equally terrifying, aspect of its existence. Beyond the bricks, social control. You feel the wall's chilling, unseen grip. Imagine for a moment that the Great Wall isn't just a physical barrier designed to keep invaders out, in the hands of powerful authoritarian emperors. It also became an instrument of immense internal control, a tool to manage and subjugate the very population it ostensibly protected. This terrifying aspect reveals a darker side to its monumentality, the wall as a symbol, and often a practical mechanism, for imperial domination over its own people. Consider its role in population control. For centuries, Chinese society was largely agrarian, with peasants tied to their land. But the wall, stretching across vast distances, created a more defined border, not just for external enemies, but for internal movements. You might find yourself living in a society where leaving your assigned village or region without explicit imperial permission became increasingly difficult, especially if your lands were near the wall. The vast network of watchtowers and garrisons, while ostensibly looking outwards, also served as a means of surveillance inwards, monitoring the movement of people and preventing unauthorized migration. It's like a colossal open-air prison wall, not just around the empire, but within it. The very act of conscription for the wall became a powerful tool of social discipline. Remember those forced laborers, the power to wrench individuals from their homes and send them to distant, deadly construction sites instilled a deep fear and obedience in the populace. You learn quickly that defying the emperor's will, or even simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time, could lead to a life of brutal servitude on the wall. This served as a chilling deterrent against dissent, rebellion, or any form of social unrest. It's a subtle, yet pervasive form of social engineering, shaping the behavior of millions through terror. Historians still debate the extent to which the Great Wall's construction policies were deliberately designed for internal social control versus purely external defense. But there's a strong argument that the practical outcomes certainly reinforced imperial power over its subjects. Some scholars highlight that the scale of such projects often served to unify a population through shared hardship, but it also became a primary tool for crushing any form of independent thought or action. Furthermore, the wall reinforced a rigid social hierarchy. At the top, the emperor and his elite. At the bottom, the millions of anonymous laborers who built it and the soldiers who guarded it. You are acutely aware of your place in this vast, inflexible system. The wall itself, with its imposing scale, served as a constant, physical reminder of the emperor's absolute power and the insignificance of the individual. It's a psychological weapon, silently asserting the might of the state over every single person. Imagine living under the shadow of a structure built with so much suffering, knowing that your life could be just another brick in its colossal ambition. The wall also served as a psychological barrier, shaping the worldview of the Chinese people. It fostered a clear distinction between us, the civilized Chinese, and them, the barbarians, beyond the wall. While this might have created a sense of national identity, it also reinforced isolation and perhaps a certain xenophobia. You are told, constantly, that everything good and orderly lies within the wall, and everything chaotic and dangerous lies beyond. This ideological function, though less tangible than bricks and mortar, was a powerful form of social control, directing collective fear and loyalty towards the imperial center. A little-known detail is that while the wall was built to keep barbarians out, historical records show significant periods of cultural and economic exchange and even intermarriage across the frontier, suggesting the wall's social segregating function was often more theoretical than absolute on the ground. The massive resources diverted to the wall also meant less investment in other areas that might have empowered the common people, such as widespread education or local infrastructure that didn't serve imperial aims. This kept the populace largely agrarian, less mobile, and thus easier to control. The focus on a singular, monumental project reinforced a centralized, top-down power structure, leaving little room for regional autonomy or independent social development. So, as you drift deeper into sleep, let the chilling idea of the Great Wall as an instrument of social control settle over you. Beyond its physical presence, it exerted an unseen grip on the lives of millions, shaping their movements, stifling dissent, and reinforcing a brutal hierarchy. You feel the ghostly weight of that unseen control, the psychological chains forged from brick and stone, a horrifying testament to the lengths an empire would go to dominate not just its borders, but the very lives and spirits of its own people. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That a symbol of protection could also be a tool of profound oppression? You're still there, suspended in the quiet contemplation of ancient power and its chilling grip. The subtle echoes of social control and imperial ambition still lingering in the air. We've journeyed through the harrowing construction, the brutal conditions, the strategic failures, the economic strain, the human cost, and the unseen control exerted by this colossal monument. Now, as our story of the Great Wall nears its end, you are left to contemplate its ultimate meaning, a legacy of horrific beauty. You contemplate the cost of eternal ambition, Imagine yourself standing before a remote section of the Great Wall today, centuries after its primary construction ceased. The stone is weathered, the bricks are worn, and moss might cling to its ancient surface. The wind whistles through the watchtowers, carrying whispers of the past. It is, undeniably, a breathtaking sight, a testament to human perseverance and ingenuity on an epic scale. It draws millions of visitors each year, a symbol of China's rich history and enduring spirit. But now, after our journey together, you can't look at it the same way. The beauty is there, yes, but it is inextricably intertwined with a horrifying, profound cost. You see the wall's enduring physical presence, stretching across deserts and mountains, as a monumental achievement of engineering. It truly is one of the most impressive structures ever built by human hands. The logistical challenges, the sheer scale of the labor involved, even with brutal methods, are almost unfathomable. It shows the incredible capacity of organized human effort when directed by a singular, powerful will. This aspect of its legacy is what draws the awe, the admiration, and the wonder. It's a testament to what humanity can accomplish, given enough resources and enough drive. However, your gaze now lingers on the ghostly images of the millions who perished in its construction. You hear the silent screams of the forced laborers, the groans of men hauling impossible loads, the whimpers of those dying from disease and exhaustion. You see the families torn apart, the dreams crushed by imperial decree, the beauty of the wall. In this light, becomes a horrifying irony. A grand facade built upon a foundation of immeasurable suffering. It is a constant, stark reminder that progress, even monumental progress, often comes at an unimaginable human price, especially when driven by unchecked power. Historians still debate the overall value of the Great Wall's legacy. Is it primarily a symbol of national pride and defensive genius, or a harrowing monument to tyranny and human suffering? The answer, perhaps, is that it is both, a complex and contradictory emblem of an ancient civilization. The wall's strategic failures, though often overlooked in popular narratives, also form a crucial part of its horrifying legacy. You remember how it was breached by corruption, outmaneuvered by mobile enemies, or simply opened by political calculation. It stands as a powerful lesson that no physical barrier, no matter how immense, can fully secure a nation from all threats, especially those from within or those that adapt and evolve. It represents a colossal misallocation of resources that might have been better spent on more dynamic military strategies, or on improving the welfare of the very people it was meant to protect. It's a warning from history, etched in stone, about the limitations of static defense against adaptable foes and internal vulnerabilities. And then there's the economic drain. You recall the crushing taxes, the diverted resources, the famines caused by priorities skewed towards this colossal project. The wall, while providing a degree of security for periods, also bled the empire dry, contributing to the very instability it sought to prevent. Its legacy, then, is also a cautionary tale about the dangers of imperial overreach and the unsustainable costs of obsessive ambition. It reminds you that true strength comes not just from monumental structures, but from a healthy, prosperous, and content populace. A little-known detail is that later dynasties, particularly the Qing, largely abandoned the costly maintenance of the most distant sections of the wall. Recognizing its diminishing military utility and prohibitive cost, choosing to rely more on internal control and cavalry. Finally, consider the wall's enduring impact on China's self-perception. It became a powerful symbol of distinct identity, of separation from the outside world. While this fostered unity, it also solidified a certain isolationist mindset. The wall, in its beauty and its horror, continues to shape how China sees itself and its place in the world. A legacy of both pride and profound internal scars. You realize that this monstrous, beautiful structure is more than just stone. It's a living, breathing testament to the enduring complexities of power, defense, and human sacrifice. As you close your eyes, the image of the Great Wall, both magnificent and terrifying, begins to soften. You've walked its perilous paths, felt the strain of its construction, and pondered its ultimate meaning. It stands as a monument to what humanity can build, but also, terrifyingly, to what humanity can endure and what it can inflict in the name of ambition.